Dance hall queen ruled the saloon, until the judge called her his stolen daughter. She danced on tables while men wept into their whiskey, but the night the judge walked in, she stopped mid-step, because he called her by a name she'd buried with her childhood bones. The saloon didn't have a name, not one painted on a sign, anyway. Folks just called it, the Queen's Place, and that was enough. She didn't wear a crown. Didn't need to. Her spurs chimed like chapel bells when she walked, sharp and holy in their own right. Men cleared paths without being asked. Women watched her with envy stitched tight behind their eyes. She moved through smoke and song like a storm wearing silk, hips swaying, smile sharp, fingers never far from the derringer tucked in her garter. She arrived in Redemption Creek 10 years ago, or maybe 12, time gets drunk out here and forgets its own count. Stagecoach wheels screaming over dry earth, dust pluming behind like the ghost of something chasing her. She stepped down alone. No luggage. No escort. Just a carpet bag, a limp in her left leg that never quite healed right, and a locket around her neck she never opened in public. No one asked where she came from. Not seriously. In the West, everyone's running from something, a lawman, a debt, a memory. You don't pry. You pour whiskey instead. And whiskey, she had in abundance. She bought the saloon 6 months after arriving, paid cash, mostly in gold eagles no one dared question. Renovated it herself. Hung velvet curtains to mute the desert sun. Polished the bar till it gleamed like river ice. Hired girls who could sing, not just sigh. Installed a piano that didn't wheeze. By the second winter, the Queen's Place was the only building in town with glass in all its windows, and the only one where a man could get shot for raising his voice too loud. She danced every Friday. Not the polite kind. Not the parlor room twirls with gloved hands and lowered eyes. Hers was the kind that made spurs rattle on the rafters, barefoot sometimes, skirts swirling like desert wind, sweat glistening on her collarbone, hair coming undone like a flag surrendering to wind. Men threw coins. Women clapped with reluctant admiration. Children peered through the swinging doors until their mothers yanked them back into the street. But she never smiled during the dance. Not really. Her lips curved, yes, painted red as fresh blood, but her eyes? Those stayed dry. Distant. Like she was dancing for someone long gone. Or dancing to forget someone still coming. Behind the bar, she kept a ledger. Not for money. For names. Men who crossed her. Men who lied. Men who laid hands where they weren't welcome. The ledger had no dates. No amounts owed. Just names. And beside each, a single word, paid. Or pending. No one knew what paid meant. But the men marked, pending, slept with one eye open. She never took lovers. Not publicly. Not privately, as far as anyone could tell. A gambler from Santa Fe once bet $50 he could get her to kiss him before moonset. He woke up at dawn hogtied to a mule with his pants nailed to the church door. The Queen watched from her balcony, sipping coffee, expressionless. She ruled with silence more than shouts. A lifted eyebrow could empty a room. A slow sip of whiskey could delay a duel. She didn't carry a badge. Didn't need one. Law in Redemption Creek didn't come from the sheriff's office, it came from the woman who poured your drink and remembered your sins. And then, on a Tuesday hotter than a blacksmith's forge, he came. No fanfare. No posse. Just one man on a tired bay mare, coat black as a preacher's Sunday best, dust powdered over his shoulders like funeral ash. Silver spectacles glinted under the brim of his hat. He didn't tie his horse at the post. Didn't tip his hat to the whores on the porch. Walked straight through the batwing doors like he owned the ground they swung on. The piano player stopped mid-note. The bartender froze, bottle hovering over a glass. Even the flies seemed to pause in the air. The Queen was counting receipts behind the bar. Didn't look up. Not at first. She finished tallying. Closed the book. Placed a brass weight on its spine. Then lifted her gaze, slow, deliberate, dangerous. The man removed his hat. Set it gently on a nearby table. His hair was gray at the temples. His hands, though, those were steady. Steadier than a gunslinger's. Steadier than a father's ought to be. He stepped forward. 1. 2. 3 paces. Stopped just shy of the bar. The saloon held its breath. He spoke, voice low, cracked like old leather, but clear as a struck bell. "You're Eleanor." She didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Just stared. He continued, softer now, like he was afraid the words might shatter. "My daughter. Stolen from me 23 years ago. I've ridden 600 miles. Crossed 3 territories. Buried 2 horses. All to find you." A glass shattered on the floor. No one moved to clean it. The Queen's fingers curled around the edge of the bar. Knuckles white. Not from fear. From something deeper. Something older. She whispered, so quiet only the man in black could hear, "You're too late." And then, for the first time in a decade, the Queen of the saloon turned her back on a customer. She walked to the stairs. Didn't run. Didn't hurry. Each step echoed like a hammer on an anvil. Behind her, the judge didn't follow. He just stood there. Waiting. Like he'd waited 23 years already. And a few more minutes wouldn't kill him. The desert wind picked up outside, moaning through alleyways, rattling the saloon's signless sign. Somewhere, a coyote howled. Not in hunger. In warning. She never opened the locket in daylight, not because she was afraid of what was inside, but because she was afraid of what she'd remember when she saw it. The locket was cold against her skin, even in the desert heat. Always had been. Like a shard of winter sewn into her flesh. She slept with it. Bathed with it. Danced with it tucked between her breasts, hidden beneath lace and sweat. Men had tried to pry it off her, drunk fools, greedy thieves, lovers turned desperate. None lived to brag about it. The locket wasn't jewelry. It was armor. A tomb. A trigger. That night, after the judge spoke her name, Eleanor, she climbed the stairs to her room, locked the door, and didn't light a lamp. Moonlight bled through the curtains, painting stripes across the floorboards. She sat on the edge of her bed, boots still on, spurs digging into the rug. Slowly, with fingers that trembled for the first time in years, she unclasped the chain. Let the locket fall into her palm. It was heavier than it looked. Always had been. She turned it over. The metal was worn smooth in places, not from polish, but from touch. From nights like this. Nights when the wind howled just right, or a stranger's voice cracked in a certain way, or the smell of burning wood drifted in from a campfire down the street. Nights when the scream inside her clawed its way up her throat, raw and wordless, begging to be remembered. She pried it open. Inside, the daguerreotype. Faded. Cracked at the corner. But clear enough. A woman in a high-collar dress, bonnet tied neatly under her chin, lips pressed into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. A man beside her, younger, clean-shaven, collar stiff, hand resting on the woman's shoulder like he was afraid she might float away. And between them, a little girl. No older than 5. Pinafore dress. Ringlets tied with ribbon. Eyes wide, not with joy. With surprise. Mouth open mid-laugh, or mid-scream. It was impossible to tell. Time had stolen the sound. Left only the shape. The Queen, Eleanor, traced the girl's face with her thumb. Was that me? She didn't remember the dress. Didn't remember the ribbon. Didn't remember the hands that tied it. But she remembered the scream. Not the one in the picture. The one after. The one that came when the fire started. When the men crashed through the windows. When someone, strong, rough, smelling of leather and blood, yanked her out of bed and stuffed a rag in her mouth. She remembered kicking. Remembered biting. Remembered the taste of copper and wool. And then, nothing. Just years of silence. Of new names. Of back-alley tutors and brothel kitchens and stagecoach rides that never ended. Of learning to shoot before she learned to write. Of trading lullabies for liquor and lullabies for lies. She snapped the locket shut. Stood. Walked to the wash basin. Splashed water on her face. Didn't look in the mirror. She didn't need to. She knew what she'd see, the queen. Painted lips. Smudged coal. Hair wild from dancing. A woman carved from dust and defiance. Not the girl in the locket. That girl was gone. Buried. Or stolen. Just like the judge said. Downstairs, the saloon had emptied. Only the bartender remained, wiping glasses with a rag that had seen better decades. The judge sat at a corner table, hat in his lap, hands folded. He hadn't touched the whiskey the bartender poured him. Just let it sit. Let it breathe. Let it grow warm. She descended the stairs barefoot. Spurs left behind. Derringer left behind. Even the locket, she'd tucked it into her pocket. Not around her neck. Not anymore. Not tonight. She walked straight to his table. Didn't sit. Didn't speak. Just stood over him, arms crossed, the ghost of a child in her shadow. He looked up. Didn't flinch. Didn't smile. Just met her eyes, gray meeting gray, storm meeting storm. You kept it, he said softly. She didn't answer. He reached into his coat. Pulled out a folded handkerchief. Unwrapped it slowly. Inside, a tiny, tarnished silver spoon. Engraved with a single letter, E. I gave this to you the day you turned 1, he said. You used to bang it against your high chair. Drove your mother mad. Her throat tightened. She didn't take the spoon. Didn't touch it. But she didn't walk away either. He continued, voice fraying at the edges. They came at night. Raiders, not Apaches. White men. Hired guns. They wanted my land. My rulings had made enemies. I was away, presiding over a land dispute in Silver Bend. When I returned, the house was ash. Your mother, gone. They found her body in the orchard. You, vanished. He swallowed. They left a note pinned to her shawl. Said if I ever pursued you, they'd finish what they started. So I waited. Watched. Followed whispers. Rumors. Barroom tales of a dancing gunslinger with a limp and a locket. It took me years to be sure. But I never stopped looking. She finally spoke. Voice low. Rough. Like gravel under wagon wheels. Why now? He looked down at the spoon. Because the men who took you. They're dead. All of them. Last one hanged in Yuma last spring. I'm not chasing ghosts anymore, Eleanor. I'm chasing you. She turned away. Walked to the bar. Poured herself a drink. Didn't offer him one. Drank it slow. Then, without looking at him, you say you're my father. He nodded. She set the glass down. Hard. Prove it. Outside, the wind picked up again, howling through the alley, rattling the shutters, carrying with it the scent of coming rain. Or maybe just more dust. More ghosts. More things better left buried. But the locket in her pocket felt heavier now. Like it was waking up. Like it remembered before she did. And memory, in the West, is never kind. It doesn't knock. It kicks down the door. The judge didn't leave that night. Slept in the saloon's back room, the one usually reserved for girls who drank too much or gamblers who lost too big. The queen didn't sleep at all. She sat by her window, locket in hand, staring at the moon, waiting for the scream to come back. It did. Louder this time. There was no jury. No oath. Just whiskey gone sour and a father's voice trembling as he confessed, not to losing her, but to letting her go. Midnight in the saloon smelled like regret and old tobacco. The piano was silent. The bottles behind the bar stood like sentinels, unopened, untouched. Even the dust seemed to hold its breath. The queen had barred the doors after last call, not to keep trouble out, but to keep truth in. The kind of truth that doesn't survive daylight. The judge sat where drunks usually snored into their own puddles, spine straight, hat on the table, silver spectacles catching the low lantern glow. He looked older now. Not in years. In weight. The kind that settles in a man's shoulders when he's carried shame too long. She stood behind the bar. No drink in hand. No weapon in sight. Just her. The queen. Eleanor. Whoever she was tonight. No one else was allowed in. Not the bartender. Not the girls. Not the sheriff, who'd knocked twice and left when she didn't answer. This wasn't a barroom brawl. Wasn't a land dispute. Wasn't even a reckoning. It was a trial. And she was both judge and jury. She spoke first. Start from the beginning. And if you lie, even once, I'll put you on the next stagecoach out of town. And you'll never find me again. He nodded. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. Just folded his hands and began. The year was 1868. You were 4. We lived in a valley near the Rio Pecos, green land, rare for that stretch. I was circuit judge then. Rode from town to town settling disputes, signing deeds, hanging men when the law demanded it. Made enemies. Powerful ones. The Delgados, cattle barons with blood thicker than their ledgers. I ruled against them in a water rights case. Took half their grazing land and gave it to homesteaders. They swore revenge. He paused. Took off his spectacles. Wiped them with the hem of his coat. They came at moonset. Torches. Rifles. Shouting scripture like it gave them the right. Your mother, she hid you in the root cellar. Told you to stay quiet. No matter what you heard. You were good at that. Always were. Quiet child. Watchful. His voice cracked. I wasn't home. I was 30 miles east, signing a marriage license for a couple too poor to afford a preacher. By the time I rode back, the house was still burning. Smoke choked the sky. Neighbors stood in the field, too scared to help. They found your mother near the well. Throat cut. Eyes open. The Delgados left a note pinned to her dress. Said if I ever looked for you, they'd find you first. And make sure I watched. The queen didn't move. Didn't blink. But her fingers curled around the edge of the bar till her nails left crescents in the wood. He continued. I searched. God knows I searched. Paid trackers. Offered bounties. Followed every rumor. But the trail went cold. Until 3 years later. A trader passing through Silver Bend told me he'd seen a girl matching your description, limping, dark-haired, kept by a woman who ran a brothel in Nogales. I rode there. Fast. But when I arrived, you were gone. Sold to a traveling show. Or so they said. He looked up at her then, eyes wet, but steady. I should have kept searching. Should have torn the territory apart. But I didn't. I stopped. Because the Delgados were still out there. Still watching. And I thought, if I let you go, if I let the world believe you were dead, you'd be safer. Forgotten. Free. She finally spoke. You chose to lose me. He didn't deny it. I chose to keep you alive. Silence fell between them, thick as gun smoke, heavy as a coffin lid. She walked out from behind the bar. Slow. Deliberate. Stopped 3 feet from his table. Didn't sit. Just looked down at him, this man who claimed her blood, who carried her name in his chest like a bullet he couldn't dig out. You knew the lullaby, she whispered. He nodded. Hush now, little sparrow, the moon's gonna keep you, she cut him off. You knew about the scar on my knee, the one from falling off the porch swing. Yes. You knew I hum it when I can't sleep. I listened outside your window last night. Heard you singing it. Soft. Like you were afraid someone might hear. She turned away. Walked to the piano. Ran her fingers over the keys, not pressing, just touching. Like she was remembering how music felt before silence took over. Then, without turning around, if you're my father, why did you let them take me? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was barely a whisper. Because I was a coward. The word hung in the air like a noose. She turned back. Eyes dry. Voice steady. Then why come now? After all this time? After I built something. After I became someone you didn't make? He stood. Slowly. Painfully. Age and grief had stiffened his joints. But his gaze never wavered. Because the last Delgado died last spring. Hanged for killing a deputy. With him gone, the threat died too. And I realized, I hadn't just lost you. I'd abandoned you. And no amount of silence could wash that off my hands. He reached into his coat again. Pulled out a small, leather-bound book. Hymns. The cover was scorched at the edges. This was your mother's. Found it in the ashes. Only thing that survived. I carried it every day since. Hoping, one day, I'd read it to you again. She didn't take it. Didn't touch it. But she didn't tell him to leave. Not yet. Outside, a coyote howled, long, low, mournful. The wind stirred the dust in the street. Somewhere, a horse whinnied. Inside, the lantern flickered. Shadows danced on the walls. Not the Queen's kind of dance. The kind that comes before a storm. She walked to the door. Unbarred it. Didn't look at him. Sleep in the back room again, she said. Tomorrow, we'll talk more. He didn't thank her. Didn't move until she was halfway up the stairs. Then, softly, thank you. Eleanor. She stopped. Didn't turn. Didn't correct him. Didn't say she wasn't Eleanor anymore. She just kept climbing. One step. Then another. Like she was walking away from a grave. Or toward one. The locket in her pocket felt warm now. Like it was alive. Like it remembered. And it wasn't done screaming yet. She danced barefoot in the sawdust one last time, not for money, not for men, but for the ghost of the girl who never got to finish her lullaby. And when the shot rang out, it wasn't the music that died, it was the lie. Friday came like a reckoning dressed in fringe and firelight. The Queen didn't announce the dance. Didn't need to. Word spread faster than fever in a mining camp, she was dancing tonight. Last time. Maybe ever. Men came from 3 counties over. Miners with gold dust still in their beards. Ranchers who left cattle untended. Even a pair of Pinkertons, posing as card players, sat stiff-backed near the door. The saloon swelled past capacity, bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, breath thick with whiskey and sweat, eyes all fixed on the small cleared space near the piano. She didn't come down the stairs in her usual sequined corset and thigh-high boots. Didn't wear rouge or kohl. Just a simple cotton dress, pale blue, faded at the hem, sleeves loose at the wrist. The kind a child might wear to a picnic. Or a funeral. Barefoot. Hair unbound. No spurs. No derringer. No locket. Just her. And the ghost she was dancing for. The piano player, old man Finch, fingers gnarled but steady, didn't wait for a signal. He knew the tune. Everyone did. It was the one she hummed in her sleep. The one her mother sang. The one that had no name, only feeling. Hush now, little sparrow, the moon's gonna keep you. He played it slow. Tender. Like a lullaby dragged through 20 years of dust and gun smoke. She stepped into the circle of lantern light. Didn't smile. Didn't bow. Just closed her eyes. And began. Her feet moved first, small steps, hesitant, like she was relearning the earth beneath her. Then her arms lifted, slow as wings unfolding. Her hips swayed, not for show, not for lust, but for memory. For release. For the girl in the locket who never got to grow up. Who never got to choose. The room fell silent. No coins clinked. No glasses clinked. No one breathed too loud. Even the judge, seated near the back, hat in lap, hands clenched white-knuckled, didn't move. Didn't blink. Just watched. Tears cutting clean lines through the dust on his cheeks. She spun. Once. Twice. Skirt flaring like a prayer. Head thrown back. Mouth open, not singing. Screaming. Silently. The scream she'd swallowed for 23 years. It poured out of her in motion, in the arch of her back, the tremble in her shoulders, the way her fingers clawed at the air like she was trying to tear through time itself. Remember me. Remember her. Remember what they took. The music swelled. Finch poured his soul into the keys, every note a stitch trying to mend something broken beyond repair. And then, halfway through the third refrain, a voice shattered the spell. Bullshit. The word cracked like a whip. Every head turned. Standing near the bar, swaying on his boots, bottle dangling from his fingers, Caleb Rourke. Rancher's son. Spoiled. Drunk. Always had been. His father owned half the grazing land west of town. Caleb owned nothing but trouble and a .45 he didn't know how to use. He pointed at the queen, fingers shaking. She's fakin' it. Ain't no judge's daughter, she's a gutter rat wearin' someone else's tragedy like a damn costume. The room froze. The queen didn't stop dancing. Not yet. She kept moving, slower now. Heavier. Like each step cost her blood. Caleb staggered forward. Look at her. Barefoot like some lost kid. That ain't grief, that's theater. She's playin' you all for fools. The judge stood. Sit down, boy. Caleb sneered. Or what, old man? You gonna cry me to death? He raised his bottle. Took a swig. Wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. I knew girls like her back in Abilene. Pretty faces, sad stories, all lies cooked up to pry open wallets and pantaloons. She ain't your daughter. She's a thief. Stealin' a dead woman's memory to sell tickets. The queen stopped. Mid-step. Mid-breath. Mid-scream. She turned. Slowly. Eyes dry. Lips parted. Not in anger. In sorrow. The kind that comes when you realize some wounds never close, they just fester in other people's mouths. She didn't reach for a weapon. Didn't shout. Didn't cry. She just walked toward him. Barefoot. Dress whispering against her legs. Caleb laughed, nervous, jagged. You gonna slap me, sweetheart? Go ahead. She didn't slap him. She finished the dance. Right there. In front of him. One last spin. One last sway. One last silent scream. Then she stopped. Looked him in the eye. And whispered, "You're right. I'm not her daughter." The room gasped. Caleb grinned, triumphant, stupid. Then she added, "I'm her vengeance." And before he could blink, before he could raise his bottle, before he could stumble back, she moved. Not for a gun. Not for a knife. For his belt. She yanked his revolver from its holster, smooth, fast, effortless, thumbed back the hammer, and fired. One shot. Center mass. The sound cracked through the saloon like God slamming a door. Caleb dropped. Bottle shattered. Blood bloomed across his shirt like a rose forced open too soon. Silence. Thick. Holy. The queen lowered the gun. Didn't look at the body. Didn't look at the crowd. Looked at the judge. His face was gray. Not from shock. From understanding. She walked to him. Placed the smoking revolver in his palm. Closed his fingers around it. Then turned. Walked to the stairs. Didn't run. Didn't hurry. Each step echoed. Like a gavel. Like a heartbeat. Like a name being carved into stone. Outside, the wind howled. Not in warning this time. In mourning. The piano stayed silent. No one touched Caleb's body. No one called for the sheriff. Some truths don't need laws. Some justice doesn't need trials. Upstairs, she didn't go to her room. Went to the window. Looked out at the desert. The locket lay on the sill, open. The daguerreotype stared back. The little girl's mouth, forever caught between laugh and scream. The queen touched the glass. Softly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Not to the girl. To herself. Downstairs, the judge still stood. Gun in hand. Eyes on the stairs. Waiting. Not for forgiveness. Not for love. Just for her. The coyotes didn't howl tonight. They knew better. Some silences are sacred. She left before dawn, no note, no goodbye, just hoofprints heading west and a locket on his pillow, empty. Because some memories are too heavy to carry. And some daughters are too broken to be saved. The desert doesn't care about goodbyes. It swallows them. Swallows footsteps. Swallows names. Swallows the sound of a woman saddling a horse in the dark, cinching the girth tight, checking the water skin one last time. Swallows the creak of leather, the snort of a restless mare, the click of a revolver slid into a saddlebag, not for war, not for revenge, but for the long silence ahead. She didn't look back at the saloon. Didn't pause at the edge of town. Didn't wait for the sun. Rode west. Where the land forgets. Where maps end. Where even ghosts get tired and lie down in the sand. Behind her, Redemption Creek slept, or pretended to. Shutters drawn. Lamps dark. Only the judge stood on the porch of the rented room above the mercantile, coat buttoned against the chill, spectacles catching the first pale smear of dawn. He didn't chase her. Didn't call out. Just watched the dust rise behind her until it blurred into the horizon. He knew she wouldn't stop. Not for him. Not for anyone. Some souls aren't meant to be anchored. He waited. Every evening. Rain or shine. Dust storm or stillness. He set the table himself, mahogany polished to a mirror shine, silver forks aligned just so, napkin folded into a crane, glass filled with cool well water. He lit a single candle. Sat at the head. Left the chair across from him empty. The townsfolk whispered. She's gone mad. She's gone free. She's gone the way all wild things go, where fences don't reach. The bartender stopped asking if he wanted company. The preacher stopped offering prayers. Even the sheriff, a practical man with tired eyes, finally said, "She ain't comin' back, Judge. Best you eat while it's warm." But he kept setting the table. Kept the chair empty. Kept the candle burning. Because hope, in the West, is the last thing to die. And sometimes, it's the cruelest. 3 months passed. Then 4. The saloon changed hands, sold to a quiet man from Tucson who kept the velvet curtains but banned dancing. The piano gathered dust. The whores moved on. The gamblers found new tables. The queen's name became a story told over whiskey, half legend, half warning. You ever see her dance? Heard she shot a man mid-step. They say she was a judge's daughter, or maybe the devil's. No one knew. No one dared claim they did. Then, on a Tuesday, same day he'd arrived, same heat, same silence, a boy on a mule rode into town. Dusty. Sweating. Carrying a letter with no return address. Just 3 words on the front, for the judge. The boy handed it over, accepted a nickel, and left without a word. The judge didn't open it right away. Sat with it on his lap. Stared at the script, looping, feminine, ink slightly smudged like it was written in haste, or tears. Finally, he broke the seal. Inside, no greeting. No signature. Just 3 words, I remember screaming. And tucked beneath them, the locket. Open. Empty. The daguerreotype, gone. He turned it over in his hands. Felt the weight of absence. Felt the ghost of her thumb tracing the metal. Felt the years, all 23 of them, collapse into his chest like a rotten roof. He didn't weep loudly. Didn't collapse. Didn't curse the sky. He wept the way old men weep, quiet, shuddering breaths, shoulders bowed, hands folded over the locket like it was a Bible he didn't know how to read. Because he finally understood. She hadn't left to punish him. She hadn't left because she didn't believe him. She left because she did. And the truth, the fire, the scream, the mother's body, the father's cowardice, was too heavy to carry in one place. Too sharp to hold in one skin. She had to ride it out. Let the wind sand it down. Let the miles bleed it out. She didn't need a home. Didn't need a name. Didn't need a father's forgiveness. She needed the open road. Where the only ghosts were the ones she chose to carry. Where the only law was the horizon. Where the only judge was herself. That night, he didn't set the table. Didn't light the candle. Didn't fill the glass. He sat in the dark. Locket in hand. Staring at the empty chair. And for the first time in 23 years, he let himself remember her. Not the girl in the locket. Not the queen in the saloon. His daughter. Eleanor. Laughing in the orchard. Splashing in the creek. Singing off-key at bedtime. The real her. Before the fire. Before the silence. Before he let go. He whispered into the dark, I'm sorry, Ellie. And the wind, for once, didn't steal it. It carried it. West. Where she was. Where she'd hear it. Eventually. They say she was seen near the Arizona border, riding alone, hair braided, face shaded by a wide-brimmed hat. They say she traded her mare for a stallion with a white blaze and a temper to match. They say she took work at a remote way station, not dancing, not dealing cards, just mending fences and minding horses. They say at night, when the fire burned low, she'd hum a lullaby, soft, broken, beautiful. They say she never opened another locket. Never wore another crown. Never looked back. And that was her mercy. Her redemption. Her peace. The judge died 2 winters later, quiet, in his sleep, locket still clutched in his hand. They buried him under a cottonwood tree on the edge of town. No headstone. Just a wooden marker, carved by the bartender. He waited. She rode. Love doesn't always mean staying. And every year, on the anniversary of the day she danced her last, a single blue wildflower appears on his grave. No one knows who leaves it. No one follows the tracks. Some things are better left unknown. The desert remembers. Not in stone. Not in song. But in silence. In hoofprints fading under wind. In empty chairs at candlelit tables. In locket shells with nothing left inside. And in the hearts of those who loved, and let go. The Queen. She's still out there. Somewhere. Riding. Remembering. Free. And that's how the West keeps its legends. Not in books. Not in ballads. But in the spaces between breaths. In the silence after the shot. In the dust, that never quite settles.